Okay, all right, so now we're gonna be talking, when you guys get your notes, hey, whenever she gets back, she'll help get all this to you. I've color coded the history to the segment, so everything in that segment is about that historic date. So at 2 Kings 20 and Isaiah 38 is 712 BC. Of course, you know, it goes from bigger to smaller, right? When it gets to 701, that's closer to 0, okay, which is, but sometimes, you know, it can be a little confusing. So here we are, 2 Kings 20. So it is gonna be in those days, Hezekiah became mortally ill, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came to him and said to him, thus says the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. Well, there you go. That's really, hey, guess what? Gonna die, buddy. So he says in verse 1, it's really 1, 2, and 3 is really where we're at. Set your house in order. You're gonna die from this illness. Wow. That would be pretty dang sobering. Then he, Hezekiah, turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord. What do we see about Hezekiah? What is the key thing that identifies this king? He is a man of prayer.
He's a man of prayer. This is the first thing he did.
The first thing he did. That's right.
I wrote down total devotion.
Right. Exactly right. I'm just going to put H. Hezekiah prayed. And what did he pray?
Remember how I've walked before you and through with a whole heart and have done what is good in your sight.
How did I walk before you? Wholeheartedly. Now, yeah, my heart just goes out to him. What is his next thing that he does?
Well,
He wept bitterly. Why do you think he wept bitterly? Number one, there's no heir. He doesn't have a son.
oh,
There isn't a son. There is no, that we know of, right? There's no heir, there's no son to take his place. There is an enemy in the area. Remember now at this time, what's going on in northern Israel. Yeah, there, Hosea and all that stuff has happened and all these things are going on. So there's a vicious enemy in the area. It looks like maybe this is the end of the line of his family for Judah. I don't know, because his father is who? Ahaz. What was Ahaz doing? But he was sacrificing his sons.
Yeah.
We don't know if there's another son left besides Hezekiah. We don't know about the line, what's going on. And so I would think he has said, I have done all these things faithfully to you with my whole heart. I don't have a son. Maybe all my brothers are dead. You just don't know. There's no other evidence of anyone else. And so he's saying, basically, in weeping bitterly, you are leaving me. Destitute. Without a future. I'm the king. The very first month of the very first year of my rule, I cleaned out the temple. On the very second month, I had Passover. I consecrated the priest. This is how many years later? Right? This is not, it's really not that long. I don't think after we became king.
Where I read it was 14 years.
4 years.
Right. But the point is that he has been doing a really great job. And so he's like, what am I doing? So verse 4 says, before Isaiah had gone out of the middle court, so he's gone out of his living quarters, he's in the middle court, he's not out of the king's palace yet. Before he gets through the middle court, the word of the Lord came to him saying, return and say to Hezekiah, the leader of my people. Isn't that great? Thus says the Lord your God, the God of your father David, I've heard your prayer, I've seen your tears, behold, I will heal you. On the third day you should go up to the house of the Lord. So God hears.
God answered quickly.
He
wasn't
sure
even asking
did.
for it.
That's right. That's right. Let's do it again. So 4 through 11, God hears, answers, heals. And what does he say he's going to do? On the third day, you will enter the house of the Lord. Now, what does that say about Hezekiah?
He's loved.
It's gonna be completely new.
Well, what's the house of the Lord?
The temple.
So what does that say about his heart? Because the third day, if you had just gotten healed, what is the first thing that you would do? Would you run to the house of the Lord? Or would you run to your family? Or would you run to, see what I'm saying? The first thing that he did was go into the house of the Lord and thank God for healing. Because he's saying on the third day, you will go to the house of the
But
Lord.
then you have to pay the bill.
Well, he certainly had people around him. He had a wife, I mean, he had, you know what I'm saying? He had something going on, so he had Massa somewhere that was happening. But he goes, the point is that I'm saying is that he could have gone to his leadership. If there was no woman and a child, there wasn't a child. But if there wasn't a woman in his life, there certainly would have been people that he cared about.
But the Lord told him to do that.
Yeah, well, on the third day he shall go up, but he would have gone up, but he was not. That's the implication of that. What else does he say? In verse 6.
I will have 15 years to give it up.
Okay, verse 6. And what else?
He will deliver in this city from the hand of the king of Syria. He will defend the city for its own sake. For David's sake.
So I'm going to add 15 years. I'm going to deliver you from Assyria. I will defend the city. And I'm going to do it for my sake and David's sake. Because of my word and my promise to David. Then Isaiah takes the cake of figs, they laid it on the boil. I don't know what this thing was that was killing him, but it must have been like going off like a cancer or something. I don't know. Sounds really disgusting. Now, Hezekiah said to Isaiah, what would be the sign? Yeah. What will be the sign that the Lord will heal me, and that I shall go up to the house of the Lord the third day?
Pretty. It's like, I'm healing you, dude, and you're asking for a sign. God is very merciful.
He says, well, I thought it was so interesting. He said this would be the sign. The shadow shall go forward 10 steps. He says, so he did the thing that he has spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 steps or go back 10 steps? I think there's something else going on there, but I'm gonna take a second. So Hezekiah answered and said, it is easy for the shadow to decline 10 steps. No, but let the shadow turn backward 10 steps. Isaiah the prophet cried to the Lord, he brought the shadow on the stairway back 10 steps, so this should have been gone down on the stairway of who? Ahaz. What did Ahaz do in chapter 7 of Isaiah? He rejected the sign that God asked him for. God said, ask for a sign as high as the heavens, as deep as Sheol. What did Hezekiah just say?
Yeah, who's gonna get the sign on Ahaz's steps?
As high as the heavens, as deep. Listen, for the sun to go back up 10 steps on the steps of Ahaz. So this is actually an amazingly good thing because, see, Ahaz was afraid that God would actually do it, and he'd have to admit that God was God. Hezekiah asked without reservation because he believes God is God. Okay? I mean, I think when you have the courage to ask God to do something like that, what would have happened if it didn't happen? It would shake his faith, wouldn't it? So this is a faith building event that God allowed, because he didn't say, you shall not ask me of any questions or anything like that. But the 10 steps deal that was going on, verse 11, a sign of Hezekiah's faithfulness, because he believes that God will do it, or he would not have asked it. Now, the notes that I wrote. I think that there's two things. It helped his unbelief and strengthened his faith, right? The second thing is God taking the opportunity to redeem in Hezekiah what did not happen to Ahaz. God offered a sign, Ahaz rejected it. God caused the sun to reverse back up the stairs of Ahaz. So Hezekiah, did he know the story of his father?
Yes.
Of course he knew the story. It was an opportunity to be tested by the Lord. There's a two-sided thing here. Hezekiah is asking a question that strengthens his faith and shows his confidence to test the Lord, is what I'm trying to say. Very wordy way of saying it. Okay. So 2 Kings 20:12, Isaiah 39, 2 Chronicles 32, is then he shows the well. So, oh my goodness, Mr. Here we go. So let's look at 2 Chronicles 32-31. So you have this amazing situation happen here. And we see in verse 12 of 2 Kings 20, Merodach-Baladan, a son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard that Hezekiah had been sick. So that tells you there has been some degree of a time frame between these things that have happened. Okay, so 2012, 2 Kings. A letter from Babylon.
Yeah, the present.
A present. And that's what he does. He says, he sent this letter and this present, and he says, sent letters and a present, for he heard that Hezekiah had been sick. So, you know, they don't have Western Union. They don't have, you know, anything like that. So some time has gone by, but this wasn't like, you know, he got sick and he had this incredible event that happened. Second Chronicles 32:31. Says, again, even in the matter of the envoys of the rulers of Babylon, who sent to him to inquire of the wonder that had happened in the land, God left him alone only to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. So this right here is a test. Second Chronicles 32:31. God allowed a test to Hezekiah through Babylon. And this letter, that's the only way that we could look at it, right?
32.
And then it says in, I think this is when I start getting really crazy. Okay, 23 through 26 of 2 Chronicles 32 says, and many were bringing gifts to the Lord of Jerusalem and choice presents to Hezekiah, the king of Judah, so that he was exalted in the sight of all the nations thereafter. Okay, so this is happening. So this is 32:23, and we're going to go ahead and go through 24:25 because the important thing is that Hezekiah did not give a return of benefit for the benefit he received because his heart was proud. So he allowed the test through Babylon. There were many gifts being given, right? But the result was Hezekiah became proud. He was not returning the gifting that God had given him with anything but pride. Now, why do you think that would happen?
He's getting all the attention. And the Lord had blessed him. He had become rich. He had, you know, he had fortified cities. He had built up his treasury. He had made armor, all those things that he had done.
So when things like that happen to us, what is our inclination? What are we inclined to say?
Good idea.
That's not a good idea. Me and God, we got to go on. It doesn't say that he didn't believe God gave it to him, but what is it that he thought?
Special.
Special, but what else? I obviously know how to, you know, God and I have this great relationship. I don't know what your relationship's like. I don't know, you don't look like though you're doing too well. You must not be quite where God wants you to be. Do we do that? Do we look at our circumstances and say this must mean that I'm in really good connection with God? He's really taking care of me. You know, people will go to someone like that and ask them for help. How are you able to do it? It doesn't sound so holy. Don't push your heart is right. You see, the externals did not reflect internally what was going on with Hezekiah. But people were bringing lots of offering to him because they thought, what? What do people think? I want to hang out with that person because you know what? They know how to They know how to do things with God. You think that happens today? How do you see that happening today?
TV preachers, that have giant followings. And, they have a lot of power, a lot of power. And, they must be doing right, because they've got 10,000 people in the church. And, there's one that's following,
Oh, is it? Oh,
standing.
oh, I know. Andy Stanley.
Disappointed.
Yeah,
Who?
Andy Stanley.
Andy Stanley.
What's going on with him? He's kind of got rogue and,
He had an event in his church over the last few weeks. I mean, it just happened. This just happened recently. And, they called it unconditional. And it doesn't matter what you, and it's in support of the LG whatever. And all those letters.
Yeah.
It's in support of that, and you need to be a church, they do, no doubt. But it's supporting that. It's supporting their right to that. One of the speakers, and I don't recall the names, one of the speakers said he had a talk with God and God told him to do this. And it's okay to go to church, and it's okay to be practicing, he's married. And
major man.
yeah, to be practicing that. And I had a discussion with my best friend about this, and she said, well, he's trying to show everybody that we need to love them. We need to love them. We can't let the sin infiltrate the church.
Well, this is what I do every day. I love those things. I do.
Yes.
But you can't tolerate the sin.
Yeah.
You have to say to them, listen, I understand that you had a hard life, or this is going on, or that's happening, but it is not okay to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're not saved. You could be saved and do that stupid things,
You
but
could.
somebody has to call you out and say, this is not acceptable.
And I think a preacher that allows that, you have to be real
You have to
careful.
be careful.
You have to be real careful. Because you don't want
Because
to
they could be seeking, genuinely
Yes.
seeking. So if they're genuinely seeking,
genuinely see.
they're gonna be willing to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. And
Not
no,
trying to
but
be-
it was built up to support that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And in support of it. I'm just so disappointed. I don't know if I have the right to be disappointed about that, but
I think that
I'm
we
so
did have a right to be
disappointed.
disappointed. I'm sorry, I think. we
well, I
have a
just
right-
think about that. I think about position. And it's not just preachers,
No,
but then it gives them so much power. And when I read all this, I'm going, it's gonna fall. Because the more power they get, and I've never thought of Andy Stanley as being a prideful person. He's written so many things, and I mean, he's been through, personal crises.
so it's not just things like that, large leaders, it's happening in our individual churches.
Sure.
And so what we have to ask ourselves is, what are we looking at when we see something going on with someone else, and it appears that everything is going so bad in this people? What are we looking at? What should we be looking
Well, I guess you have to think about where's it coming from, which is what they asked. Where do you get this?
at? Right,
Where do you get this from?
right.
And where do they get it from?
So we're fruit inspectors, not heart surgeons.
We're
And we're fruit inspectors, not heart surgeons. I cannot change your heart, I can only inspect your fruit. I'm a fruit inspector, so if something happens and I go and I talk to that person, and, I'm just kind of I'm happy for them, whatever that God's done in their life, it's fantastic. And then I need to be a little bit of a fruit inspector. Where is this taking you? What humility do I see? Why would I do that? What would be my responsibility?
You mean after you've done the fruit
Yeah,
inspection?
and Hezekiah is the king.
Oh,
Who's his fruit inspector?
Isaiah apparently.
Isaiah.
Okay, yeah.
He
So,
should be saying,
dude, and did he do that?
he did.
He sure did. So the point I'm getting at is that don't be afraid to say, hey man, God's doing some amazing things in your life, but I'm just asking you to kind of think twice about what you're doing. So what does that mean that we should be like in church? What are we supposed to be like in church? Humbly observant.
Yeah, there you
Being humble. I am not God. I can't look into your heart. I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm observing some things that make me feel a little bit comfortable. And I just want to humbly come to you, and I have done that. And say, can you kind of explain to me what's going on? I just want to see what's happening. And if they start talking to me, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, no big deal. But there have been a few times I said, yeah, but I think maybe you should think about this, and we'll talk again. You can't save them.
Right.
You're not their Holy Spirit. But why does the church have so many problems today? All of our churches have problems. Why?
Satan,
That.
That
Satan.
live attitude, you
Yeah,
know.
she said Satan,
Yeah, that's what we have in common.
Yeah.
but we're afraid to say something when we see something.
I was gonna
Yes.
say,
And we're
I
not,
guess that's not really a good word, but
not expressing a concern.
yeah.
There's a big difference between confronting somebody and expressing a concern and saying, oh, you know, there's something about this just doesn't feel right. Can you explain that to me?
Discernment. We
Yes,
are to have
sir.
discernment.
Thank you.
I use it a lot. Why couldn't I think of
We need to be discerning.
it? Careful.
Careful.
Be careful.
Be
Use that.
careful. And discern.
We have.
Well, you don't want that to come back on you and they go, well, what about you and this?
That's right. And you know what? If you can give it out, you better be willing to take it.
Exactly. Exactly.
We have a group of young women at our church that, they're involved in children's ministry, they're involved in the weekday ministry, and they're all over each other's business all the time. And there's a lot of backbiting and stuff going on, you know.
I call it poison.
That's bad.
I call it poison because it's so much divisiveness.
That's not what this is.
No, it's not. Not
So what do you
exactly
do
the
about
same.
that? If you know it, it's
Almost
not.
like Laurel Larrow.
Exactly. Exactly.
Laurel Larrow is
I-
very
When you,
mature.
a while back, you said that as a
So much.
praise person, that you have people who try to get close to you because they think that this is gonna put them in a different spot, not. So you have to be careful and discerning of what their object is. That came to my mind immediately is why, you know, is there a reason for this happening?
Right. Right. Why is this happening? What is it that they want? Yeah.
And that's, and you said it, what do they want?
Yeah,
What do we want?
Exactly. Exactly right. All right.
Kathy, one more thing I want to say, I haven't got to say it, but what I'm trying to say is, a lot of times it's going to depend on relationships too. If you have relationship of friendship, whatever, with someone, it's much easier to come in and say, hey, I noticed that, I see that.
Thank you for
That's
sharing
great.
that. That's exactly
But
right.
if it's someone you've never spoken to,
Oh, no.
never had words with, to correct them.
No.
No,
This isn't even correcting. I'm not trying to correct somebody. I'm just saying, and you're right. You have to be in a relationship with them. Because if you're not, and thank you for bringing that up, if you're not in a relationship, then you're just criticizing.
That's right.
You're going up and being critical of somebody, you don't even know what's going on. If you are in a relationship with somebody, and you know that they've got something going on in their life, and that might be why they're acting the way they are. Maybe they are critical of somebody else because they have a lot of personal pain. There's a way to deal with that too, you know, and say, I'm feeling a lot of pain, but you know,
Uh-huh,
can I have it, please?
it's in there.
It's possible. What all of this is requiring is relationships. Not with just the people you like.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we still on Hezekiah gave no return for the benefit of the city?
Yes.
Yeah. But then it says, therefore wrath came on him in Judah and Jerusalem. I missed that. What was that?
I don't know for sure. I think that the wrath might be Shinopin.
Okay.
Okay, but it's not really, really clear there. What
But
that
then he
was.
humbled himself after the wrath.
Yes, he did, and we're gonna see that in the next part.
Okay.
I just didn't put that in because I couldn't research that verse out well enough to be definitive, but I think that's what it is.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So. All right. I'm just making sure I've got my. stuff here. So crazy. So, we need to ask ourselves, the rest of the story, 20:12-19, sends a letter, brings present, and then what do we see? What does Hezekiah do? I mean, what does Isaiah do? Well, we're back in 17:20. Thank you, sorry. 2 Kings 20.
Happy I leave a little.
Okay,
That's okay. I'll see you next week.
okay, all right.
I think Hezekiah stole.
That's the reason why you text me that.
Okay, so it has,
Does it sound like he stole him a little bit for being so, here's all the stuff I have. You can probably take a look at all my great stuff.
yeah, he says in 14, now Isaiah, the prophet, came to King Hezekiah and said to him, what do these men say? From where have they come to? And Hezekiah said, they've come from a far country, from Babylon. Here's the thing about Hezekiah, he is genuinely, he really doesn't understand the danger he's in. He really doesn't get it. Because Isaiah says, who are they? Who are they? What did you tell them?
They come from Babylon.
Yeah, they come from Babylon. Now, let me tell you something. Babylon is a no-dump little country. It's nothing big at this point. They've got 100 years or so before they really get to be a big deal. And he says, he said, what have they seen in your house? And Hezekiah answered, they've seen all that's in my house. There's nothing among my treasures that I've not shown them. I showed them everything. Yeah. Now, what does this say about Hezekiah?
He's trusting or something, I don't know.
Yeah,
Or maybe he's just dumb.
Foolishly proud.
thank you.
He's showing off a little bit.
When somebody's telling you something that God has done, and they keep using the word I, there's a little fight going. Look what I did. I did this. I did that. God has a way. You're not the Holy Spirit. You're not their judge. But did Isaiah say anything to him like that? Isaiah said to him, hear the word.
Do what?
Hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days are coming when all that is in your house, all that your father has laid up in store to this day will be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left. Wow. That is pretty sobering. 17 through 21, or 17 through 19. I'll just say. 17. You have will go to Babylon. And what does he think? What is the next thing he says? Some of your sons who shall issue from you, whom you will beget, will be taken away, and they will become officials in the palace of the king of Babylon. Your sons, servants, to Babylon. And what does Hezekiah say?
Oh, yeah.
He said, the word of the Lord which you
Yeah.
have is good. Why would he think that was good?
So what you believe. Instead of.
Well, the next thing he said is it not so if there would be peace and truth in my day? What is he saying there?
Well, everything's gonna be good for the rest of my life.
It's gonna be good for the rest of my life. And it's gonna be good for my kids because they're gonna be at peace. So he was saying peace at all costs. That's what Hezekiah is saying.
Peace at all costs.
Yeah, because it's gonna cost him the wealth of his kingdom and his sons to have peace. That's what he's saying. That's what he actually saying, but he doesn't understand what that means. Because he's not been held captive. Listen, Judah has never fallen to an enemy. All this time, Judah has been free. Now, they've been stupid, they've been idolatrous, they've had a lot of skirmishes and wars and lost people, but they have never fallen. And Hezekiah is this good king, this man who loves the Lord with his whole heart, is the catalyst. That should say something. Because he got his own. Now, we're under the law, not grace, so I just want to point that out. We're not under the same constraints here. We can do stupid things and God still forgives us, but we have a consequence. Isn't that true today?
Yes.
So he did a stupid thing, and there's a consequence. Only for him, the consequence is far bigger than just a little spanking for a dumb thing. It's the loss of relation to a
But
person.
he won't be there to see it. will he?
He won't be able to see it, and he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand. So, I've got my little notes here. Second Chronicles, let's see. So 2 Kings 12 and 19, we just talked about it. He showed up all he did, and if he's saying the tune, it's all about me song. It's all about me. I'm the best.
I did it my way.
I did it my way.
Good old Frankie.
His treasure house, everything in it was shown. All the power and wealth of Hezekiah was revealed to the enemy. Isaiah comes and says, what have you done? Did you listen to these men? What Assyria could not do with weapons, Babylon did with gifts.
Or Syria could not do with what?
Weapons,
They could-
Babylon did with gifts.
What's interesting though is that God, when he provided the sign for Hezekiah, was setting up the situation.
He was,
Because these people came from Babylon because of the sign, the wonder
right.
that occurred in their.
And what did God say? I'm gonna deliver you from Assyria. So what do you think Hezekiah is jumping to
Deliver us from everyone.
from everything?
Yeah.
There's nothing bad's gonna happen. Here's the, what does pride cause in us?
Destruction.
Arrogance, which makes us let down our guard.
I do it before fall.
Pride, which masks our ability to see the tactics of our enemy. It's not gonna happen to me. That's what he's saying. That's promising. This isn't gonna happen to me. He said, the Lord said to Hezekiah, your children will go into captivity. They're gonna hurt. He's basically saying, they're gonna serve false gods and pagan kings. But he doesn't hear that. Why? Because of arrogance and pride. A time of peace, and my children will have comfort and peace. And this is a good word. That's what he said. How does pride blind us? How do we know it's pride? How do we know that it's our pride that's blinding us? What did Hezekiah do? He ignored the truth and accepted the lie.
Sounds familiar with you.
How sad is that? So now we are going to go to 701 BC. Get my organize my stuff. Okay. So it's the 14th year. This happens pretty early in the timeline, you know, of things that have happened. So this is 71 BC, it's the 14th year of his reign. Okay, and so here comes Sennacherib. And what he does is he comes to the fortified cities of Judah with a large army. Okay, so that could be that that's what you were referring to when God said you're going to have distress in this month. If this happened before this, okay? So, what does God do? He started this one. Now, in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which is the 7th year of Hosea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against the man and besieged it. He catches them. And then in the 14th year, verse 13, of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, comes up against the fortified cities. Then King Hezekiah of Judah sent to the king of Assyria, and he said, let me pay you off some money. That's basically what he does. What he does, he tries to pay him off. Tries to pay off Sennacherib with money. Sound familiar? Then there's the big confrontation. So we see in 17 through 36, the confrontation. And we talked about this last week, and I'm kind of glad we went ahead and did talk about that. But 17 through 36, confrontation. So all of these things that happened in the first 14 years, we talked about last week, about the cleaning out the temple in the first month, right? Consecrating the priests and the scribes, and the priests and the other guys. There's some blank on, not the scribes, the priests, maybe might be. No. But anyway, The leadership,
Levites.
Levites, thank you. The priests and the Levites, all the people planned regular worship, opening up the temple, all the idols torn down. I mean, the first king to do all that. That's all happened here in this first half. This is the big dividing line 14 years later, okay? So we have this event now. Confrontation with Sennacherib. All right, and he gives him the silver. And the king of Assyria sent Tartan, Rapsaris, and Rabashak from Lachish to King Hezekiah with a large army. They came to Jerusalem, and they came up to the pool by the highway of the Fuller's Field. They called to the king, Eliakim of Hilkiah. The three guys come, the three amigos, Rabashak says to them, say that to Hezekiah, thus says the great king, the king of Assyria. What is this confidence you have? So now we have this incredible event. So 14 through 16, he tries to pay them off. Then we have 17 through 36 is a confrontation. Now specifically, we're going to look at Isaiah 36. Find my Isaiah. So he's had this big confrontation. The king said in verse 14, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Don't let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord. And this is in Isaiah 36. And so on. Beware that Hezekiah does not mislead you. And then he gets down here and he says, 21, that they were silent and answered him not a word, for the king's commandment was, do not answer him. So 36, 21, the people stayed silent. Now, I'm going to tell you, that would be unnerving to this guy, to Rabashak. That would definitely be unnerving. What do they do the next 36:22? What's the next thing that they do? They run to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told him the words of Rabashak. For 22, the three amigos run to the king in mourning. They are mourning.
Which chapter are you in?
I'm going between Isaiah 36 and 2 Kings 18. Very confusing, and I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
So it's just that I have to kind of do this to get the story the way that it needs to go. So. You can see my dilemma, how I had to, oh my gosh, think about this. Okay, 2 Kings 19. But I have to go back to 18. So we're going to do. What is Hezekiah's response? This, we're going to get to his prayer.
All these stores closed, put on sackcloth and ashes.
King mourns. And he mourns in a big way. He mourns and he enters the house of the Lord. And I want us to look at this and recognize what has happened in this first half, and now we're at this big event, okay? This is in the 14th year. So he's had all this stuff going on. It ends with him, peace at all costs, and then God gives him a check. Really? You want peace at all costs? What do you want to pay for? What exactly do you think that means? And here we are. He's now entering the hospital. And so he says, verse 6, Isaiah said to them, thus you shall save your master. Thus says the Lord, do not be afraid because of the words that you have heard, with which the servant of the king of Assyria has blasphemed me. Why do you say that? Because he says,
And he said, God sent me.
will deliver from Assyria, I will defend this city, because it is my word and my promise. And Isaiah is telling him, this is the first thing going on. He says over here, don't listen to their words. Isaiah, don't listen. Quit listening to the lies of the enemy. God has already said, I will deliver you from Assyria. Way before Assyria ever gets there. God's already told him that. Then he says in verse 7, 2 Kings 19, behold, I will put a spirit in him so that he will hear rumor, return to his own land, and I'll make him fall by the sword in his own land. Did that actually happen? Yes, it did. Okay, so we'll talk about that in just a second. Hezekiah was far different, because in verse 6, Isaiah says, don't be afraid. In Isaiah 7 and 2 Kings 16 and 2 Chronicles 28, Isaiah said the very same words to Ahaz. And what did Ahaz do? He rejected the Lord and chose pagan gods instead. Hezekiah is different. He is responding with a genuine response. Okay, or God would not be doing this. I will put a spirit in him. Okay, so Isaiah 37:9. Believe me, people, may I never have to teach a lesson like this again. Isaiah 37:9. Let's see. 37:9 and 2 Kings 19:9 are talking about the same battle. And God says, I'm going to make them run off. This was a battle at Libnah, 5 miles closer to Jerusalem, and the enemy was the king of Cush. Now it talks about that. This caused Assyria to withdraw from Hezekiah, okay, to go fight that battle. But Rabashak sent letters to warn Isaiah that don't think it's not over. I'm coming back, basically. So this event is a skirmish with Cush. All right. Now, this is something. Why did this happen? Why do you think this happened?
Well, they push Egypt.
Yeah, but why do you think this? Yeah, Egypt was already defeated, and they're trying to fight. And remember, Hezekiah had kind of talked a little bit to Egypt.
Yeah.
Hosea had talked to Egypt, trying
So
to
he's
get them
thinking,
coming.
okay, help us come from Egypt. This
Yeah.
is how the Lord is gonna work.
Right, right. But it's also the fact that God had told him, he's giving him a little bit of a reprieve to get what ready. To get ready up here, because he doesn't have the military to defeat them. He does not have it. He doesn't know how this is gonna happen. He's got to do some praying. Okay? So, this is what Hezekiah does. So, Rabashak sent the letters of warning. It's in 2 Kings 19, 10 through 13, and Isaiah 37. So 2 Kings 19, 10 through 13. Here comes the letter of a warning. He's warning them. All right? What did Hezekiah do when he saw it? 2 Kings 19, verses 14 and down. He says, then Hezekiah took the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And when he went up to the house of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. So what does Hezekiah do? He took the letter, this letter, to the Lord, in the house of the Lord. He says, Hezekiah prayed before the Lord and said, O Lord, the God of Israel, who are enthroned above the cherubim, you are the God, you alone of all the kingdoms of the earth, you have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. And listen to the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to reproach the living God. Stop right there. He is praying facts. This is what he is doing. This is what I'm faced with. And then he's worshiping. I believe you, God. That's what he's saying. So when he took the letter to the Lord, number one, he prayed the facts. He says, truly, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have devastated the nations and their land, have cast their gods into the fire, for they are not gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone, so they have destroyed them. Now, O Lord our God, I pray, deliver us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, O Lord, are God. Then Isaiah the son of Amos sent to Hezekiah, saying, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, because you have prayed to me about Sennacherib, king of Assyria, I have heard you. Yeah, God's going to deliver, but he doesn't know how, right? So he prayed the facts. What I'm faced with. I'm facing this. This is my problem. It is not an emotional diatribe. Oh, they were so mean to me. You see how ugly those words were? He is not majoring on the minors here. A lot of times when we pray about things, we're not praying the right thing. We're praying about how we feel about it. We're not praying about what it is that we have to deal with. Lord, there is a sin in my life, and I need you to help me be able to defeat it. Not she was mean to me, or they don't understand me, or nobody's nice to me. I'm not saying those things aren't important, but they're not important based upon what God, because Hezekiah did that. I can't believe how the joy line is happening. Don't you do that? We sure do. I do. Are you kidding me? Why am I having to go through this? But he said, this is what is happening, Lord. We prayed the fact. This is the problem I'm faced with. This is what he also did. He worshiped God. He called God who he is. He worshiped him. And when he worshiped God, he said, I believe you. I know you're God. And then he prayed who God is, who you are, what you do, how you move. Listen what he's saying. He says, incline your ear and hear, He says, now, Lord our God, I pray deliver us from his hand, that all the kings of the earth may know that you alone, O Lord, are God. We need to say, this is the only true God. You're the only one I'm gonna believe. These are the facts of the problem. I can't do it. I need you to do this for your name to be honored, not for me to be honored. Hey, you think he's learned something from over here? I think he's learned something. Because he's suddenly understanding that peace at all costs ain't working. How do we know he tried to do that? Because he tried to pay off Schnecker. It's the first time he did that. Late in the game, so to speak, he does that. This wasn't like doing it right over here. God had delivered him. He gave him a promise. He even gave him a sign. The same sign that he asked for, Ahaz to ask for. He's willing, God is willing to show us that he is in charge. If he asks. And then over here is this incredible picture here of his letter and his lack of ability to discern it. He fails. He ignored the truth, he accepted the lie. When this starts to happen, and he tries to pay off the enemy, and then he repents big time. And that's what we see. I gotta go back to what I did. Whenever we're in a crisis or a problem, go back. Where was I when God and I were communicating well? What was I doing? Where was I at in my walk? What was my life like? What's happening? Right? Okay. So God responds in 2 Kings 19 through 21 through 28. Now where am I? So he gives this big long response. He says, this is the word of the Lord is spoken against us. She's despised you and mocked you, the virgin daughter of Zion. She has shaken her head behind you, the daughter of Jerusalem. And he gives this whole long list of things that he is going to judge. And then he says, from right when it's to be, verse 29 to 31, God says, I will restore Judah and Jerusalem. Verse 32 through 34, God is promising complete protection of the city. And then we have 35 to 37. So he says in there, 32 through 23 through 24, I'm in control. He's going to restore 29 to 31 of Kings. Going to restore. And then 32 to 34, complete protection. And that's exactly what he does. He keeps his promises.
I was thinking, and I actually wrote it down in my book, when he took the letter to the temple, of 1 Peter 5:7, where it says, casting all your cares upon him,
Absolutely.
for he cares for you.
That's right. That's so good. That is so, so good. Exactly what's going on. So now we get to this ending here. The angel of the Lord struck 185,000. That's 2 Kings 19, 35 to 27. There's still kind of sins in it. 2 Kings 19, 35 to 37, and Isaiah 37, 36 to 38. Syria defeated by God. God defeated the Syrians. So it talks about in 2 Kings 19 that I looked it up. The Royal Babylonian Chronicles record the assassination of Sennacherib and the ascension of Ereshkigal in 681 BC. Sennacherib was assassinated by two of his sons while worshiping in the temple of his idol in Nineveh. It occurred 20 years after the defeat by the Lord outside the gates of Jerusalem. So one of the things that's so interesting about all of that is that when I was in New York the last time, by the way, of course, the Egyptology and ancient Eastern artifact section of the Metropolitan is really excellent. But the one in Brooklyn, I think is better. It's very small, but it had a lot of really interesting things. And one of them was a uniform of Ereshkigal at that time. So actually the uniform is big, looks like a big oval boulder about this high, and the entire story was printed. It was clay, and they printed the entire story all the way around about some of the ballads that were in this thing that was going on. But there is no record of the defeat. They know that it happened from some of the artifacts that they found, but the Babylonians did not acknowledge the defeat. They acknowledged the assassination, they acknowledged those other things. And the other thing that they did is when they had slaves, they wore a similar item that was stamped in the mud and made like a necklace of it, and they would wear that around their neck. Or the tattoos, I don't know about tattoos, they were tattooed as a symbol. Or as an idolatrous worship. So those are the two reasons they did tattoos. Anyway, just an addition. So let's talk about this at the end. We've got like 4 minutes. In this study, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Let's talk about these 4 guys. Who would have thought this would have been so good? You know? I don't know why this one, the laser is working. I can use this thought.
Someone was telling me that when you start using those cloths, that the erasers just don't work anymore.
Wasn't working before it started using power.
Yeah.
Is everybody pretty exhausted? I'm feeling pretty exhausted too myself. Believe me, got 2 more classes to teach. All right. So we've got Uzziah. Didn't that seem like a year ago? What do we know about Uzziah? How did we start? The start was great, right? How did he end? With a whimper.
He lost his momentum.
Yeah, it started out with a whimper. He was a wimp. What was the downfall? What was his downfall? What did he do?
So like that.
Huh?
So he was a leper. His arrogance led to his destruction.
Pride and power. Because what did that lead to? I can do it. I don't need anybody. Jotham. I learned a whole lot about Jotham. I didn't think I would.
You did right.
He started out, was really good. His end was good. He was a good king. But what did he not do? Like his dad, he did
Didn't remove the high places.
not, right. And he did not. So that meant the people were still going on doing it. Then we get to Ahaz. Oh my goodness.
Couldn't color the heart black enough.
What?
We couldn't color the heart black enough.
I know it. He basically start with evil. Within was horrible.
I was saying morning.
Sacrifices children.
Yeah.
Destroyed parts of the temple, list goes on and on.
And then we have Hezekiah. Hezekiah followed the Lord with his start was wow. Awesome. He really had an awesome start. He followed with his whole heart. His whole heart. The greatest interaction with Isaiah. All these other kings had to fight to get in to see Isaiah had to fight to get in to see him. But Hezekiah, you don't even see much interaction with Ahaz except for once. Right? Isaiah he had to walk away, right? He did make a mistake. He exposed Judah to future slavery. He got ahead of the Lord. And exposed Judah to future slavery. But Judah did not suffer in his lifetime. So if we could make a statement about what we've studied for so far. Don't forget who's really in charge of your life. Success and failure both come from the Lord. He sets it up so that you either want to succeed or if you disobey him, you're going to fail. His intent is always for our good and for his glory. We need to develop a deep and consistent prayer life, especially now. We are in a time in history when if we don't have an intimate relationship with the Lord, it's going to get much, much more difficult. Don't stop seeking God even when it appears nothing is happening. Even when it doesn't look like the children are going to get sick. Even when it looks like that idiot over there in the church is making the notes isn't going to move. Even whatever it might be, do not stop seeking God even though it may appear that nothing is going to happen. Even in dire situations, sickness, attacks, and lies, God will always respond to us and hold us in the power of his love. He will not forget you and he will not forsake you. We need to hold on to that. We need to really, really hold on to that. And I just might, whenever I'm teaching this again, because I have a feeling I'll teach it again at the present, I'm just gonna skip this.
You can't do that.
So, next week, I just pray, y'all, please pray for me that I can get the first lesson done because I meant to say it for church Sunday.
You could go break. And not do it next week. You would.
Then we'll be ending the week after Thanksgiving. I mean, we need to do that, you guys. It's like getting into the holidays. We'll also do that because this, you know, to have nothing to say, but we're gonna get busy. So I'll pray about it. I don't know.
So are we gonna, so are you saying, are we gonna meet the Monday after Thanksgiving? Is that the
The
plan?
Monday before Thanksgiving. Yeah, because the Monday after Thanksgiving, I just think it's too much.
It's Christmas.
Yeah. So I like to be done.
But
I like
if
to
you
be done.
need it, you can have it. We will make things work for you.
Right. Only one day.
Yeah. So it's up to you and the
Well,
Lord.
actually, Vernon, you know, if you don't get a text from me, I am, it's on Monday.
All right,
So let's go.
what are we doing next week before we?
Hosea,
The first,
The next.
the first.
Part eight. Part eight.
Okay,
I just want to make sure we're on, I was on the same page with everyone else. I won't be here, but I still will do my best.
we could always manage to drinking wine, driving down the highway. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
You can get on Zoom with your wine glass and watch
I
the
think I'm gonna spend it with Jen.
I have a sneak. Y'all do realize that California is what, 2 or 3 hours ahead of us? So this would be 8 hours. It'd be 8 a.m. or 7 a.m.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock.
my son lived in California for 7 years, so I always had to be mindful. Fortunately, he and I have very much the same sleep pattern. And so I never went to bed, so it was okay for him to call me, but it was 10 o'clock or midnight.
Well, let's pray. And then we can close. Thank you guys online for coming and being a part of it. Father, just thank you so much for the truth of your word. Lord, I might lie about the word, but Lord have mercy. I have learned so much. It's just amazing. It doesn't matter how often we study, as long as, Father, we are seeking you, you will be faithful to show us truth and speak to our hearts. So, Lord, I thank you so much for all that you've done, all that you will do. And I do pray, Father, this week for a good steady time for Hosea. I also thank you for the water in this net. Yay! So awesome. And Father, I just ask you to bless us all as we work towards getting through part 8. That God, you will honor this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
gotta go home.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. All right, bye.
I'm having my
Bye.
hair done clean.